Welcome back to the Wandering Screen. I'm Matt Koss, and today we have a special edition of the show with a special guest to talk about our favorite final predictions ahead of the Oscars on Sunday, March 2nd. So let's jump in. Today, I'm joined by senior staff writer and head of multicultural content at Awards Focus, Ben Lee. We are covering the main categories in our show, and you can head to awardsfocus.com for a full list of our predictions. Ben, I am so excited to dive into the nominees with you and who we think will take home the statue. You were in the press room for SAG Awards, on the red carpet for the PGAs, and you went to a few events at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. What are you most excited to see at the Oscars this year?
Thank you, Matthew. First of all, it's exciting to talk to you on this. I've been a big fan of course, you as a colleague and my editor on Awards Focus, but all of the great reviews you've been throwing up on that Wandering Screen. Um, it's the Super Bowl, right? This is the time of year that we're awards focused. This is what we spend so much time thinking about all year, and I'm just excited for that. But I think what's super exciting this year, and we've talked about it in the past, is there's really not an Oppenheimer film this year, right? Where almost from the beginning to the end, and the beginning of the show to the end of the show, all right, they're going to just keep winning, and it's not a whole lot of interest and surprise.
It's
Whereas
very
this year, right, if you've followed the awards, even as recent as last Sunday with Timothy Chalamet winning, it continues to surprise you. And I think you actually legitimately see the surprise on not just the winners, but sometimes the people that didn't win, right? And the speeches have been filled with emotion. So I'm super excited. That's been one of the biggest takeaways I've had in covering some of the events is even the nominees don't know who's going to win, and they're really buckled in, and like everyone else, can't wait to see that envelope open.
Yeah, and I think if the SAG Awards had happened before the voting period for the Oscars, Timothy might have had a bigger chance. But I guess we'll get into that a little bit later about who we think is going to win Best Actor. But that was definitely a surprise for me, seeing him win.
Agreed. I mean, he hadn't won anything, right? It's been the Adrian Brody show. So I think you're right. Like his speech was also amazing, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
All right, well, let's dive into our first category then. We are going into actress in a supporting role. Now, Ben, who are you thinking?
So I think this is one of the tougher categories, right? Even though it's gone mostly the way of Zoe Saldana, I think we keep waiting. Like, will the scandal stuff affect the nominees for Amelia Perez, and is this the one that it will happen in? I will say, like personally, watching Monica Barbera, I think she's probably had the most underrated performance in this group. Um,
Bands out there for her as well.
yeah, and she just talks like, "Oh yeah, I learned to sing and play the guitar, for this role. Like it's easy." Um, I think Ariana Grande also been amazing in the whole award circuit, and how gracious she's been. And you talk about another deserving actress. Sometimes I think imitation maybe works against you, right? She's so well known from her SNL skits as someone who can kind of imitate other singers and personalities, and maybe that works against her here. So I really think I have to stick with who has shown up and given great speeches, and did deliver also a multi-talented dancing, singing, acting performance in Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez.
Yeah, I agree about Zoe. She's been winning everything, but also the voting academy, the voting members worldwide. And a lot of people worldwide have a lot of love for Amelia Perez. So I can definitely see her winning. I would love an upset in the category too, because I loved Isabella Rossellini's
Mm,
performance in Conclave. Those, I think it was like 8 or 9 minutes that she had were
yeah.
just exceptional, and she kind of steals the movie whenever she's on screen. But I will say Felicity Jones, I wasn't that crazy about her performance. I think she's had better roles, so I'm kind of moving her to the side a little bit. But I agree with you about Ariana Grande too. I really loved her performance and she's really strong. I just don't think that this is the year that she'll win. But if
Mhm.
I'm going to if I have to pick one winner, it's going to be Zoe Saldana.
All right. So clean sweep for Zoe. All right. So why don't we move on to actor in a supporting role? And in this category, similar actually to the supporting actress role, we have another actor that has seemingly swept during the award season in Kieran Culkin for Real Pain. We also have Yuri Borisov for Honora, Edward Norton, who was also fabulous in A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce in The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong, Kieran's secession mate for The Apprentice. So another loaded category. Who do you have for this one, Matthew?
Well, for this one, I was surprised that Yura Borisov was nominated for Nora. It's a very quiet role, and even the clip they showed at the SAG Awards was just him screaming in Madison's face, Mikey Madison's face. So it wasn't anything particularly special, but I think it's really great to see for him and for his career to come. When it comes to A Complete Unknown, I was mesmerized by Edward Norton's performance. I thought he was so fantastic, but I have to give it to Kieran Culkin. People have compared his role to Roman Roy, and I really think that it couldn't be more different than his character on Succession. There's just so much that he's balancing in his performance in terms of this really deep angst and just something that's dying inside of him needs to come back to life. And his cousin, played by Jesse Eisenberg, really brings that out of him. And I really love him in this film. My pick would be Kieran Culkin. What about you?
Yeah, and I think that's a great pick. And I think your description of his performance is really, really strong and really helpful for people watching because a lot of times people say, oh, he's going to win for being himself, right? Acting himself. Like that's just his like neurotic, twitchy self. But I think you're right, right? I think he delivers an incredible performance. He builds chemistry instantly with every other actor in that movie. Jennifer Grey's character is wonderful. So I also have to vote for Kieran. Again, I have a soft spot for Edward Norton and A Complete Unknown. Just uh, singing and performing is probably underrated in how difficult it is to do live on set. And he does an amazing job and yet never tries to take over, right, from the big stars or at least the main subjects. But I think this award is definitely going to Kieran also.
The next one we have is the International Feature Film category. What did you think of the films this year?
Again, a really strong category, right? And I think this year might be one of the strongest in the last few years, in my opinion, right? And very different films, so it's hard to pick one. Um, I loved Flow. I really enjoyed it. I watched that with my family as well, and it's one that I could see an international voting body, like you said earlier, really getting behind. But I think I'm Still Here is probably the film that's going to win this one. Amelia Perez clearly would have won this one, if we were talking 2 months ago. But I think it goes to I'm Still Here. It's a story that I knew nothing about. It's fascinating. The performances, of course, are amazing. And if they're going to win an award, this is probably the one. And I think they're going to get it.
I mean, this should be Best Picture category. I mean, two of them are already in the Best Picture category, and then Flow is also nominated for Best Animation. It's kind of like there's a lot of cross-pollination with this category. It's almost like it's not needed, or there should be a separation for who is nominated in this and then Best
Yeah.
Picture. Because, I mean, months ago we would have said probably Amelia Perez would win, but unfortunately, Carla does not know the meaning of having a diary. And I'm
Hmm.
Still Here was just phenomenal. And I got to hear Walter Salles at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival talk about the film and how after the first half hour of the film with the family and the warmth of it, there was a lot of subtraction of light and dialogue and just a lot of thought went into how it was filmed. And when I say that, I can say the same thing for Flow, for The Seed of the Sacred Fig. These directors are so purposeful with the stories they're telling and why they're telling them now. So it's a really tough category. But I think I'm still here since the word of mouth has grown for this film and it got the Best Picture nomination. I think it might take this one home.
Well, why don't we move on to some of the music categories?
Yeah.
I think we can start with the original score. The nominees here being The Wild Robot, Wicked, Amelia Perez, Conclave, and The Brutalist. Do you have a favorite?
I think my favorite was The Wild Robot, honestly. I think the music just really enhances what we're seeing on the screen and it really uplifts, just like the main character. But it's just a really beautiful film. I think Amelia Perez has very dynamic music in the film and maybe would have taken this one home, but I think in the next category that we cover, that the singer and songwriters who wrote the score for Amelia Perez will probably get their award in that category. I thought The Brutalist and Conclave were really fantastic. Wicked, I kind of want to push aside because it is a musical. The music's kind of already there, but I think The
Yes.
Wild Robot, Chris Bowers just did a fantastic job. What about you?
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about Wicked because it is a musical, and therefore you would think it could very much be a winner here. But it says original score in the name of the award, so I agree with you on that one. Um, Maybe we're underrating the music in between the main songs from the musical. I'm not sure. I don't know it that well, but um, you know the one of the movies that's nominated for Best Film, Conclave, was not my favorite movie of the year, right? And yet, when I watched it, there was definitely like a pulse to it, a beat to it that, just there was an energy to what I thought would be more of a slower historical kind of piece, right? Um, and going back and listening to part of that soundtrack, I really do enjoy that soundtrack. I agree with you on the Wild Robot. It's very whimsical, but also very, very symphonic. Very much goes with that movie, and we'll talk about the Wild Robot, I'm sure, later on as well. I think I'm voting for Volker Bertelmann on this one in Conclave.
Yeah, I think Conclave's going to start surprising some people after the BAFTA wins. I think it's going to come sneak up in a few of these categories. But now we come into the best original song, and this is the one where I think Amelia Perez has the biggest chance. What do you think?
I think so. But am I wrong that Diane Warren has actually never won an Oscar despite how many times she's been nominated?
16
Yeah,
nominations, 17 nominations, but she did just win the Society of Composers and Lyricists Award
sure.
for this song. So I think that does give her a little bit of a leg up, but she's overdue.
Yeah, I'm torn on this one because I think, is there enough people that want to punish Amelia Perez so badly and they see Diane Warren's name on the ballot and say, this is the lifetime achievement award time, right? Like I don't love anyone else here, and I'm going to go with Diane Warren for all the amazing music and clearly deserving recognition that she has gotten over the years. So I'm actually going to go with her her original song, "The Journey" from the Six Triple Eight, a movie that we're not going to talk about any other time this night too, but she did deliver a wonderful melody for this one. So on to now some of the bigger categories. So we can start with adapted screenplay.
Oh, this is an interesting one because I feel like to really judge this category and to pick a winner, you also need to have read the source material.
Yeah,
And I have not. I think that I am inspired to read Nickel Boys. I thought that movie was absolutely fascinating and was the most original film of last year. I admire Sing Sing so much and the work that Clint Bentley and Greg Quedard did on that film and working with the formerly incarcerated inmates on the script itself. Amelia Perez, I think we can maybe push to the side. I am just going to say I think Conclave is going to get this. I think Peter Strahan's script was so mesmerizing, and the dialogue that was coming out, especially Ralph Fiennes' speech before the conclave started, was really fascinating. So I think Conclave's going to get this one. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is another one that this probably was Amelia Perez's to win. You
Oh,
know,
it's
I
a game.
I think there's no doubt about it, to be honest. I mean, let's recognize that they did originally get 13 nominations, right? They led, I believe, in all nominations. Um, and this just felt like this was theirs to win. But I think outside of that, I think the tide's against them for the right reasons, I believe. I think I have to give this one also to Conclave, right? And I haven't read the book yet, but I've heard the book's okay, right? But to your point, the movie and especially the dialogue and letting those wonderful actors cook for us was fantastic. So I'm gonna share in your selection here, and we're both going with Conclave.
All right. And moving on to the best original screenplay. This is going to be an interesting category. I think that you and I probably both know who will win this. I don't want to pick the script by Sean Baker for Nora, but I really admire the substance. I love the screenplay. I love the film. I think Nora will take this home. I want the substance to win. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah, so you're right. I think Honora's going to win. I'm going to pick Honora. I'm going to pick Sean Baker. I think he deserves to win, right? I don't know that he's going to win all the awards he's nominated for, editing, etc. But I do think that this is his to win. This is a tough one, though, right? I mean,
Tough.
Substance was wonderful. I think Jesse Eisenberg and A Real Pain is a sleeper here. He's beloved. I've never heard a bad thing about him. He's worked with so much of the voting body, and he's been giving great speeches. He's been winning quite a few awards himself. So that may be a sleeper here, right? I don't think
That'll be
it's
interesting.
yeah, I don't think it's 100% Sean Baker, but I would like to see Sean win. This is probably the point of the evening in my mind that we might know is the rest of the night all going to flow toward one movie, or is it just going to be a wild night, right? Like if you get some back to back, Conclave wins adapted screenplay and Honora doesn't win, then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, maybe all the awards coming, including best film, aren't going to go the way I thought they were. So
It'll be interesting if
yeah, I'll be paying attention.
Best Original and then Conclave gets Best Adapted, and the Best Picture is going to be a toss-up between the two of them, which will be
Yes,
a lot of fun. But I love that
yeah,
it's so hard to call. I love that it's not a year where it's like you were saying at the start that it's an Oppenheimer year. Yeah, they're going to take it all.
yeah.
There's so many open races that I'm so excited for Sunday.
Do you think that reflects a good movie year or a down movie year? The fact that there are so many, like there is no standout.
I think it reflects a great movie. Yeah. I think that shows the quality of the films, that it's so hard to pick a favorite or the best film in a category, which is always subjective anyway, as we know. But I think that's what makes this season so interesting, is that these films have captured their audiences, whether it's the people that sit through 3 hours of The Brutalist or someone that loves a body horror film with The Substance, that everyone has their competing arguments of why their film deserves to win. And to me, it just feels completely open. I don't even think Best Picture is a shoo-in at the moment.
All right, Matthew. So we're moving on to animated feature film.
Look, I'm just not even going to approach the other films. I'm going to say Flow. I did say The Wild Robot for the score, but Flow was exceptional artistry and storytelling in a silent film, pretty much. And I just was so mesmerized by it. I want every frame to be printed and put on my wall. What about you?
I went to San Diego Comic Con and sat in the Wild Robot panel and listened to Lapita and Chris Sanders talk about the film. And From that point on, I had my hopes really high that this was going to be a really good film, and it was. I went to see it, loved it, and I think I'm still going to go with The Wild Robot. And I'll tell you what, I don't disagree with you one ounce about Flow. I think Flow should be the winner here. But I've seen in this category the Academy tend to go to the more Pixar, bigger studio films here, despite really good other almost independent like animation efforts. And I think it's going to go the Wild Robot's way. But again, agree with you 100% on Flow. All
Yeah,
right.
I agree. Wild Robot was really fantastic. It's a toss up between them again.
Yeah. All right. So for directing, before I hear your winner, this is I think always the most fascinating category since the Oscars went to a 10 best film nomination or 10 nomination best film format because it means five directors don't get nominated. Is there anyone that you think was, or who do you think of the five not nominated was the biggest snub in this category?
Of the five not nominated, Ramel Ross should have been nominated for Nickel Boys. I just really, that film has such an originality in its direction, in its sincerity, and in the emotion that it draws out from this brilliant first person sentience perspective that he calls it. And I just think he should have been in this category. I would have taken James Mangold out and put him,
Hmm.
Ramel, in, honestly. What about you?
Yeah. I think I would have gone with John Chu for Wicked, who actually won the Critics' Choice Award. I just think when you have a property that the expectations are so high and you deliver, and even if there's a couple flaws or people think it's too long, why is it two parts? It doesn't matter. Like it made a $1 billion, and I think delighted all of your musical theater fans out there. So I would have gone with John. But picking from the folks that are left or who is in the category, I think I'm going with Sean Baker here as well on Honora.
I should go with Sean Baker because I do think that he's going to win, but I am just going to go with Coralie Fargeet. Oh, apologies if I'm mispronouncing her name, but I'm just really hopeful that she wins.
Sensing a trend on how much you like the substance.
I was sweating in that film. I was really my underarms, like whoever was sitting next to me, sorry, but like that was a visceral film.
Actually, I think the very first time I talked to you, Matthew, we talked about how you didn't like horror films. So I actually am I can picture what you're talking about.
I was covering my eye. God, it was awful,
Yeah,
but I loved it.
yeah. All right. Is it a two-man or one-man race for actor in a leading role?
Oh, I think it might be a two-man, only because Ray Fiennes has a little bit more momentum after the BAFTAs. I think Coleman, Timothy, and Sebastian have really great performances. I think Coleman in any other year could have won this. I really loved Adrian Brody's performance, but I do want to give it to Ray Fiennes because he's really solid as kind of the centerpiece of that movie. And I kind of can't imagine that movie without him either. And I think he's going to take it home.
That's an interesting pick, right? That's going against the tide that we've seen Adrian Brody winning. I'm also going to pick against Brody, but I'm going to go with Timothy Chalamet. So,
Oh,
of the three actors who have been nominated for A Complete Unknown, he's going to be the only one that I'm picking. And I feel like it will be the voters recognizing all three with this one. I also think there's a little bit of momentum here with the SAG Award, and he's just phenomenal. I think if you count it up, he sings like 40 songs in this, and I ended up wanting to watch the movie more for the music than his acting even. But I'm going with Timothy. All right, I think I know your pick for actress in the leading role.
Carla Sofia Gascon. No, it's going to go with Demi Moore. I would have otherwise gone with Fernanda Torres, but I think Demi has the brilliant story. She's going to take it home. What about you?
I've got Mikey Madison. I know that's not where the odds are, but after getting to interview her at Santa Barbara and just seeing her, she is clearly not her, right? She's clearly not Annie and Honora, and I think her performance is career making. she's just a tour de force, and she really makes that movie for me.
All right, we're down to the last category, the big one, the best picture. I'm going to read these out just so everyone knows who is nominated. And then, Ben, let's discuss who is going to win best picture. We have Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. Ben, what do you think?
Jeez. Again, a few months ago, Amelia Perez might have been the winner here. So now it's really interesting. And throughout the award season, it's been really interesting. It seemed like it might be going toward the Brutalist for a while. Then Honora really kind of all the guild awards, right? The PGAs, the DGAs, and the WGAs really picked up a ton of momentum. And then it swung back to Conclave here at the SAG Awards, and so this is I would not, if you're watching, I would not bet any money on any pick I make here. This is probably more of a gut heart pick, but as you probably can guess from some of the categories and who I picked in some of the other big categories, I'm still going to go with Honora here, right? I think of all the films I watched this year, it's the one that was the most delightful, the one that I've wanted to rewatch the most. I think there's just this beautiful combination of actors that have done just amazing performances. Performances, you said it earlier about Yura, and I said it about Mikey. Just not who you'd expect. Maybe didn't play prominent characters even in the film, but they all deliver, right? I don't know all the actors that play all the different Russian parents and that whole clan, but they were all just brilliant. And then, of course, the movie's just made so well. It's shot so well. It's shot on real sites, and I think we've all been a Sean Baker fan for a long time. So I'm going to go with Honora. Again, I'm not really confident in that decision. There's lots of great competition here. I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Well, I think with the Nora, I think it has the following. I think it's, as you've been saying, it's won so many awards. I think it's also a very not hypersexual, but it's very overtly sexual. And I think that sometimes with Academy voters works against a film, which I
Mhm.
hope it doesn't. I hope that's not a reason why someone wouldn't vote for the film because that's just the story that's being told. I'm just not sure that that's going to win the best picture. And I think I might have put The Brutalist in that top spot at one point. I might have put A Complete Unknown. And something is just swaying me to Conclave in the last week. And I think maybe it was the BAFTAs are so influential
Mhm.
to my decision making. But I think that it has a little bit of a leg up now. It's the kind of film that's easy to watch. It's not necessarily going to be everyone's favorite. I mean, we all know what happened when Green Book won, which I actually enjoyed, I will say. But, there's a lot of films here that really could win. I just think when it comes to the Academy voters that they might play it safe and go for something like Conclave. So that's going to be my pick, but I would have loved it if Nickel Boys just came in there for a surprise win and knocked everyone out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, a great pick. That would have been my number two pick. It is the movie that I think will win, if it's not Honora. So I think it's a great pick. Shout out to Dune Part Two, right? I think this is probably the movie that was out the longest and kind of loses because of the calendar. And boy, that I think people should go back and watch that film. That film is amazing, and it's probably not gonna, make any headlines coming out of the Oscars, but it really was deserving and a great movie. Matthew, is there any film that you watched this year that you were surprised not to see get nominated?
I would have loved for A Real Pain to be nominated. I think what's missing here, besides Anora, is kind of a smaller, more grounded film. I think, I'm Still Here or Nickel Boys can be put in that category, but they're very high concept in the way that they're filmed and the stories that they're telling. And A Real Pain is just it's kind of like a Juno or it's a Little Miss Sunshine. It's a
Hmm.
little movie that could. And I think I would have loved to have seen that in here. I am glad that Wicked did make it in for the points that you actually brought up before,
Hmm.
just about the immensity of the project and how much it's resonated with audiences, which you can say, for Dune Part Two as well, that, it's been so impactful. I just Dune Part Two, I wish had been with Dune Part One as one
Hmm.
film because my favorite part of the book wasn't even a big part of either of those films, which made me just question whether it really needed to be in here because I was so angry at Denis Villeneuve for not including my favorite part. But, that's just a personal vendetta that I have now. Is there anything
Yeah.
that you would have put in instead?
I don't know that I would. Well, I'd have a hard time taking one off the list for this movie. There's probably two, actually. I would say The Wild Robot, probably in my mind, was also deserving to get into into contention here. Sometimes I think it probably would have been the only real, truly family film to get into the mix. I think that should have been considered. I guess Wicked family film. Another movie that I really loved this year, and they did well at the Independent Spirit Awards, was Sean Wang's Dee Dee. I don't know
Mm.
if you saw that film, but and I'm biased. I live in the Bay Area. Fremont's right across the bay, and my dad lived there for a couple of years, so the environment and the circumstances all very familiar to me. But one of the first interviews I did earlier this year was Joan Chen, who plays the mom in that film. She was phenomenal. Um, it was a great film, great coming of age film. Kind of fits in that real pain description that you gave, and just giving another almost kind of smaller, independent, different style film to balance out the list that we have here. But I think they did a pretty good job, frankly, of putting together this list.
Except for Amelia Perez, which I mean, even if there wasn't the controversy with Carla misusing, well, actually using Twitter what it is made for, really, let's be honest, because she just
Yeah,
let her thoughts out.
yeah.
But I think in any other year, it might not have been included. I think there was just so much momentum behind it that it did get nominated, but I don't think that it is a best picture of the year. I think technically it's really fascinating, and a lot of
Hmm.
those set pieces, and especially the song El Mal, are really well done. And Jacques Audiard is a fantastic director, but I don't know if it really needed to be in here. So we could have put in Dee Dee, or we could have put in A Real Pain, but the one that I would take out really is Amelia Perez.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are with you on that one right now. So, well, Matthew, this was a pleasure. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I hope we get to do it again.
This was really fantastic, and yeah, we'll see what happens on Sunday and maybe do a post roundup.
Yeah, sounds great. All right, cheers, mate.
See you later.